Look, man, I know Scottie Barnes getting a lot of harassment by the Raptors fans because he's been playing so poorly, but he played pretty well tonight. But let's look at this clip here from Sportsnet and let me know your thoughts on that like button and comments for more videos like this.
I think, on the basketball side of it, one conversation that a lot of people have been having here in Toronto is sort of just about role definition for Scottie. What is the role for him? People like to point to, a couple of times he's been quoted saying, I see myself as a point guard.
As for Scottie Barnes, yes, he can be the Raptors point guard. He can also be their point forward as he plays the forward spot. But for Scottie Barnes' role, it can be said in many ways. It can be said he's basically the team's point guard. You can basically say he's the team's forward. Or you can basically say he's the center because he can play any positions 1 through 5. So given his role, it pretty much can be played anywhere. But roll back a clip.
Look at his Instagram page. It says point guard on there. And I think Nick has even acknowledged it as well that, he does want to play point.
Well, I think Scottie Barnes would want to play point guard because Fed VanVleet, as for last season, he can't be playing all this time at point guard. So Scottie Barnes, he played point, run him at point because the point guard position is really changing the NBA as most point guards now are 6'4" and above. But play back the clip.
If that's the role for him that he wants to go down, what's the progression that you sort of need to see from him in his growth to eventually become a very effective point guard in this league?
Well, first of all, you have to be an elite ball handler.
Yes. We know Scottie Barnes is an elite ball handler, but he played a point guard position in college. But in the NBA, it pretty much can change. So he does have a point here. But Scottie, he basically has the size and he basically can play the post. So that pretty much makes sense.
And it's even harder. The taller you are, the harder it is because the ball is traveling that much longer before it gets back in your hands. Your center of gravity is lifted a little bit because you're taller. And so you've got to get so much better. He does, but I give this speech to my point guards all the time, almost on a daily basis. In fact, my clients have to spend 10 minutes a day, every day on their handle, including game day. I don't care what the team does. They owe themselves 10 minutes extra of handle. And normally it's stationary ball handling if it's game day. If it's not game day and you're not practicing real hard, then you can do it in more movement stuff. But you just have to have an elite handle. The ball's got to be part of your hand.
See, now I see why basically in some programs they implement ball handling efficiently because most players, when they get tall and big, they basically turn the ball over. Well, this point does make sense.
The next thing is the harder thing. Well, first of all, finishing is important. If he doesn't want to be a taller Ricky Rubio, you've got to learn to finish better. You've got to learn to make shots and then be weaponized as a scorer, which is something he did not do in college well.
Well, in college, yeah, he played point guard, and yeah, he wasn't really a given ball handler, but he basically was just a raw prospect that had stream potential, but he didn't really shoot a three ball that high. So it pretty much makes sense as for why in college he pretty much wasn't really a lethal threat at the point guard position. But hey, this does make sense as for what he's saying. But at the same time, the Raptors didn't use him as a point guard last season. They used him more basically as a forward and basically as a post-up player for basically making passes out of the post and all that.
I thought he was much better last year.
Yep.
And then the hardest thing is, and this takes years, and this may be part of what we're going through here too with him, which is managing that balance of floor leader, quarterback, scorer. It's just hard to do. And the players, like I think Fred, for example, he sees himself as a scorer first, and I'm fine with that. If that's who you are and you don't take bad shots, great, because you're always weaponized looking to score. Scottie is such a gifted passer, as you well know.
Yep.
And so he's never.
For Scottie Barnes, he's basically a pass first player, but he basically is making very much good reads out of the passing and making reads out of the post for when he's being a ball handler on the court. So basically, it can pretty much be why he's not a score first guard like that VanVleet, but however he plays, how he plays, but he's making looks always for others.
Probably going to have that personality, but you've got to get comfortable with, okay, when is it my time to shoot and when is it my time to pass? And there's rules for that. You can even use math. If there's the probability of you succeeding on a particular shot can dictate whether or not you should pass or shoot. But he's such a feel guy. I don't think analytically he's thinking about that, but as he ages, he will. But I've noticed in the last few games that I've watched of his, and to be honest with you, when you guys lost Siakam, I didn't watch as much because you're not as good. I really try to focus on the better teams.
It's not even the same. It's not close.
I can't follow all 30 teams. So I got to follow the relevant teams. I catch them enough on Synergy. I was watching some 3 or 4 days ago, even before you texted me, just to kind of see how they were doing. And there are times where Scottie feels, it looks like to me like he's thinking, I've got to shoot this. And that,
Yeah, for Scottie Barnes, sometimes he is passive with the ball. Sometimes he doesn't use his size as advantage as he's at a point guard position. So he basically just passes out and just makes the easy pass when given. But he does it a little bit too much, but it could make sense sometimes for what he's saying.
that's a terrible mindset to have. You could have the mindset of, I have to make a play. But the play isn't necessarily to shoot. That's dictated on how open you are, what the likelihood you're going to score and or get fouled. And if those numbers are lower, well, then you should be passing the ball to someone who's got a higher number. And honestly, that just takes time. But if he improves his handle, and the one thing I him at point guard is I'd hate for him to be not involved in the offensive rebounding game and the cutting game. Those are two of his real strengths. So Nick Nurse is no dummy. He will play him some like Ben Simmons when Ben Simmons was an all-NBA player.
Yeah, for Scottie Barnes, basically playing the point guard, yes, he does lose a bit of offensive rebounding and rebounding presence as he's basically bringing the ball up. But yeah, comparing to Ben Simmons could be a liable comparison to how Nick Nurse could play him at a point center.
Not this Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Get him in the dunk spot, get him cutting, get him screening and rolling and picking up.
Yeah, Scottie Barnes, when he's in a dunker spot, he can basically make an impact, but he can just catch lobs. And when he's being used in the pick and pop game or pick and roll, this very much makes sense. So it pretty much is a good viable option for Scottie. And often you can basically just run him at the center spot even too, because he's basically a forward in a center's body.
Popping, of course, and then, of course, being a primary ball handler using screens. And he also has to get much, much better. He's actually bad using screens when I've watched, at understanding how to use them, refuse them, reuse them, use them, then refuse them. There's a subtle art to this game and a science. And I think he's got some feel for both, but he's nowhere near the expert at either yet because he needs more reps. He's young.
Yeah, no, we keep coming back to this. I mean, like, obviously, sometimes for people who are really, really enamored with Scottie, and obviously there's good reason to be, right? People have a hard time sometimes. They reflexively reject some of these criticisms or even just sort of updates on sort of how he's playing. But I think, again, like, this has to all be said in a context that he is very young and that this is a new situation for him that he's sort of having to adapt to. I think your point about him playing point guard and sort of, taking away from the other aspects of this game is really, really interesting. I haven't heard that point.
But yeah, hey man, Scottie Barnes, everyone's going to critique his game. He basically has time to develop and grow as a player, but he'll only get better from here. And given the time and patience with the Raptors development staff and coaching, him playing a point guard position could be scary for many years to come. But hey, everyone's game is not really the best, but you can pretty much fix it within a given amount of time, right?
A lot from just elsewhere in the Raptors conversations, because yes, he is a really good cutter. He is really good at the offensive rebounding when he's around the hoop, but he's not obviously around the basket as much if he's mostly setting up the plays at the top.
But yeah, basically my dog David is saying if Scottie Barnes wants to be an elite point guard, he'll basically just have to be an elite ball handler. You got to know when to use screens and to basically just do what every point guard does and be a threat on the court. So this pretty much makes sense what the homie David Thorpe is saying as he's a coach for basketball. So it pretty much makes sense for everything he said. And where I got this clip was from the William and Lou show, as I watch this show for the Raptors stuff almost every other day. So I just want to get my thoughts and react to this. If you are new and like the video, please be sure to like the video, and more Raptors content on the way. And make sure to like and subscribe. It's your boy Demi, and I'm out. Peace.